As St. Peter Prep adopts a one-to-one program, we begin to alter our classrooms into instructional media centers. We will no longer need spaces like Maury Lab. The use of Google Chromebooks breaks us free from the limitations of the practice of bringing your own devices and opens digital venues that give each of our students a chance to experience learning rather than receive learning. As classrooms become instructional media centers, students and teachers are given front row seats in 21st century learning. Each of us is already familiar with the digital landscape at Prep. All of our teachers are using iPads, laptops, or desktop PCs. We navigate management systems like PowerSchool. We traverse the cloud across venues like Gmail and Google Drive, and some of us have even mastered management systems like Moodle. We are now on our way to meet the challenge of 21st century education. It's all about global citizenship and community building. It's about students becoming accountable, self-directing, curious, media literate, students who themselves will create, innovate, and solve problems. Our classrooms are becoming instructional media centers, byways into the emerging digital and global public squares of ideas, calling our students and us to practice civic virtues, to become responsible digital citizens, to be people who have regard for the social contracts that unfold in rising global marketplaces. We recognized during the last 2 years that there is a digital divide, a difference in access to internet resources among our students as well as our teachers. Not only is that divide a clear distinction between nations, but it's also an unconstructive distinction among our own citizens. We have a responsibility to make sure that our students bridge the divide so that they can be fully prepared for higher learning. Perhaps you have been surprised by our students' tech savvy during a class when you were permitting them to use digital resources. I remember a day, before I could complete an introduction on Aristotle's politics, they were online citing his ethics. When we began to explore women in the global labor force, women who had encountered unsafe working spaces, they were already reading reports on the experience of women in Bangladesh in the garment industry. When we were considering regions of conflict in the world, they were already calling up live news feeds from the Ukraine. I recall a time when we were discussing institutional instructional discrimination, and they were calling up Atticus Finch's defense of Tom Robinson in the courtroom setting of To Kill a Mockingbird. So what will the prep classroom becoming an instructional media center look like in 2014 and 15? Well, our one-to-one program will place Chromebooks in the hands of each of the students. There will continue to be digital projectors for smartboards and digital screens. Our hope is that maybe more of those screens will be responsive to touch. You and students will be able to design and construct websites, create projects and quizzes and tests and essay rubrics, and make use of cutting-edge assessments as delightful as Kahoots and Socrative. Imagine a flipped classroom that creatively reframes learning outside of class, something we used to call homework, and reimagines learning in class, where students solve even global issues. So let's proceed with this workshop, building our prep classrooms into media centers. Let's begin with what we know best, and let's build on that. Let's envision something new. Imagine students watching Pedro Arrupe deliver his Men and Women for Others speech, or listening to a TED Talk on mathematics that boggle even the brightest of minds. And yet, while they're watching and listening to these different presentations, your students are conducting a Socratic circle on a Moodle chat, a live chat, so you can see what they're thinking, how they're engaging, how they're exchanging, how they're understanding in real time. Consider utilizing digital resources to analyze and to solve problems like Prezi, Powtoons, infographics that teach students how to do quantitative and qualitative analysis, seeing the literary, historical, and scientific narratives that are in numbers, or perhaps publishing a book of essays, or poems, or photographs, or paintings that they created. Imagine, instead of students and teachers lugging around hardbound binders, simply opening up online a live binder. Imagine, instead of lugging around a manila folder filled with essays and outlines, simply opening up the link to an Evernote. So here's the invitation for how we will spend the remaining workshop sessions. Let's begin by reflecting on what your level of comfort and confidence is in working with technology. And then once we do that, let's ask, where do you want to begin transforming your classroom into an instructional media center?